Good day everyone, here we are again with another video presentation in navigation. I am Midshipman Andrew D. Lamoco of Dr. Carlos S. Lanting College, and I will discuss to you the appraisal part in voyage planning. First, let us find out what is the voyage planning, or also known as the passage planning. Of course, thanks to Google for making this topic more understandable. Now, what is a passage plan? A passage plan is a description of the ship's passage which is prepared by an experienced deck officer, usually the second mate. And it is a comprehensive plan and a berth-to-berth guide, meaning it's a guide from the departure until the arrival to the port of destination. And when we say comprehensive, it means that it is detailed to ensure the safe passage of your vessel. The important details when you are about to make a passage plan are the most favorable route, potential hazards or problem along the route, and many more. To accomplish this, 4 stages of the passage planning are made. First is the appraisal, the planning, execution, and monitoring. Now, we are going to focus on the first stage. So, what is appraisal and what are we going to prepare on the appraisal? Just sit back and prepare your notepads because we are now entering the appraisal stage. Appraisal is the first stage in passage planning wherein you are going to gather all the information relevant to the proposed voyage. That include ascertaining risk and assessing the critical areas. Most of the navigators tend to prepare a checklist for the appraisal. This time, I will be going to show you the checklist in order for us to gather all the relevant information that is needed in the passage plan. So, what are the main points for our appraisal? Of course, we should take note of the following. First, the vessel's draft for the intended voyage, the minimum depth of available for the voyage, reporting requirements during the passage plan if there are any. We should also identify if there are areas along with the passage that need to be avoided. And also, are there any deep water routes that we can and cannot use? Another special routing measures required. If we have adequate information about those I have mentioned, we can plan our passage. Now, let us go to our checklist and obtain the information that we need in our appraisal. Let us say that we are traveling from Singapore to Mombasa. Our objective is to make passage plan for our vessel that has 7,000 gross tonnage, draft of 5 meters, and with a speed of 16 knots. What do we need for the appraisal? First is the chart catalog. If our vessel has no software for using paper charts, we can use the chart catalog for our passage plan. The best that we can do is getting first the planning chart or a small scale chart that will have both port of the areas of Singapore and Mombasa. Planning charts should always be on board so that we can use it anytime when needed for passage planning. We will be searching for the chart that will cover the route of our vessel. For the chart catalog, we will be using BA chart 4071, northern parts of Indian Ocean. In the small scale section of this chart catalog, we can get the course from Singapore to Mombasa, including the chart numbers and that are applicable for the route. Another alternative for the paper chart is the ADMIRALTY digital catalog. Number 2 in our checklist are the charts. For our passage plan, we must have the required paper chart or the electronic navigational charts. Some companies have their providers of ENCs, so they are using ENC for passage planning. So, the question is, what are we going to do to get the information required in our paper charts for the voyage? There are some software that provides the information that you will need. For example, Chartco. We will just enter our intended route and see the information. You can find there the information that you will need and also the other charts that are not included in your folio. We must bear in our minds that taking notes of the chart number is a good practice in passage planning. Next on our checklist are the ocean passages of the world. Ocean passages of the world is one of the first information that we need when passage planning. Ocean passages of the world, or NP136, supports most of the passage planning in deep sea voyages. It gives details on weather, currents, ice, hazards, and the distances within major ports. So, what are the information available on ocean passages of the world? First, it has individual chapters covering each of the world's oceans, including the details of the weather, climate, winds, currents, swell, seasonal factors, and ice hazards. Second, it has also coverage of the world's busiest emerging traffic routes. This helps the bridge team and shoreside staff with routing, planning, and calculation of arrival time. 3. Numerous diagrams are also included. These diagrams are tabulated to help the users find the route information quickly. Ocean passages of the world are also now available as Admiralty e-Nautical Publication, or AENP. It has improved efficiency, accuracy, and access to the information that the bridge team need. It used through electronic updating. For our passage from Singapore to Mombasa, we can find it in Chapter 6. Now we're going to Chapter 6 and find the best route for our passage plan. The information that you can see are seen in Chapter 6. So, from Mombasa, the route is through 1.5-degree channel, and to the north, you will approach to Malacca Strait, through Malacca Strait and going to Singapore. And also, the distance will be 3,990 miles. So, meaning, in the ocean passages of the world, we are given a direction for us to follow, and it states that we have to go through 1.5-degree channel. Next on our checklist are the routing charts. Most of the charts are published by the hydrographer of the Navy, specifically the British Navy. The chart number is 5128-8. Routing charts are similar to pilot chart. Pilot charts, on the other hand, are published by the Defense Mapping Agency of the USA. So, what are the information that we can get in these charts? Both of the routing chart and pilot chart give us monthly information on ocean routing, currents, winds, ice limits, and various meteorological information. Next on our checklist are the Admiralty sailing directions. It provides many information that supports port entry and coastal navigation for different types of ships at sea. It is split in 76 volumes that covers the world's main commercial shipping routes and ports. Every volume of the sailing directions give us the following information: navigational hazards, voyage, pilotage, regulations, general notes on countries, port facilities, seasonal currents, ice and climatic conditions. Sailing directions together with official Admiralty charts helps in situational awareness on the bridge. It also provides us diagrams with high quality and photography to help the bridge team understand critical information during the passage plan. There is also a worldwide coverage to support safe and compliant navigation within the main commercial shipping routes and ports. This coverage is split in 76 volumes. Next are the sailing directions planning guides. It includes relevant physical, political, industrial, navigational, and regulatory information about the countries adjacent to particular ocean basin in a single volume. There are specific publications on the parts of the world, and these are the following: Publication 120 for the Pacific Ocean and Southeast Asia, Publication 140 for North Atlantic and adjacent seas, Publication 160 for South Atlantic Ocean and Indian Ocean, Publication 180 for Arctic Ocean, and Publication 200 for Antarctica. Next on our checklist, the Admiralty list of lights and fog signals. The Admiralty list of lights and fog signals give us information about all the lighthouses, light floating marks which are over 8 meters in height, fog signals, and other lights of navigational significance. Each publication also gives us what are the characteristics of the lights and fog signals, together with the equivalent foreign language light descriptions. Tables are used to calculate geographical and luminous ranges of lights. In the Admiralty list of lights and signals, the important details are listed as follows: the international number, location or name, geographical coordinates, characteristics and intensity, elevation in meters, range in sea miles, and description of structures. Changes to lights are listed in weekly Admiralty notices to mariners. These images shown are just the examples of the Admiralty list of lights and fog signals. For Volume A, it is the British Isles and North Coast of France, or the NP74. For Volume B, southern and eastern sides of the North Sea, NP75. Next is the Admiralty list of radio signals, or ALRS. The Admiralty list of radio signals provides us information on all aspects of maritime communication. It also helps the bridge team in communicating with other vessels and coastal stations in complying with the reporting regulations while on the voyage. Admiralty list of radio signal is divided into 6 volumes. It contains maritime radio listings and maritime safety information services worldwide. The following are the 6 volumes of the Admiralty list of radio signals. Volume 1, or NP281, which are the maritime radio stations, and it is split into publications, Part 1 and Part 2. For Volume 2, or NP282, which provides radio aids to navigation, differential GPS or DGPS, legal time, radio time signals, and electronic position fixing system, Parts 1 and Part 2. Volume 3, NP283, which contains maritime safety information services. It has also Parts 1 and 2. For Volume 4, NP284, for meteorological observation stations. Volume 5, NP285, for Global Maritime Distress and Safety System, or the GMDSS. For Volume 6, NP286, for Pilot Services, Vessel Traffic Services, and Port Operation. It has Parts 1 to 8. For our appraisal, we will be going to the Admiralty list of radio signals Volume 3, so that we can get the details of the nav text and the NAVARIA coordinator at the same time, so that we can get NAVARIA warnings. In Volume 4, it gives us similar information in meteorological observations for reporting. Now, I will show you when we are going to use ALRS Volume 6. When we open it, it will give us information on the reporting requirement on every port. In the image that is shown, the blue dots on the map are the information about reporting requirements in the specific area or port. We can double-click on our port of destination for area that we are going to pass, and information will show up for the reporting requirements. For our voyage from Singapore to Mombasa, here are the data that will show on our screen. For our voyage, apart from the port arrival reporting for Singapore and Mombasa, the reporting to Malacca Strait will be applicable. As we can see on the image, Singapore VTS Sector 7 uses VHF Channel 73 for reporting. Sector 8 uses VHF Channel 14, Sector 9 uses VHF Channel 10, and also we can see the procedure when passing through and also how to report. Number 8 on our checklist are the tide tables. We should also consult the tide tables and tide atlas to obtain times, heights, directions, and the rate of set. Most of the tide tables are calculated and published in major ports, and it is called the standard ports. We are gathering information about tide tables because it is helpful for our example when we are going to port of destination. We have to be aware of the time of the high tides and low tides. We should also see the time and the applicable tide for our ship's draft and when we are going to anchor or berth on our port of destination. The image shows high tides and low tides to our example port of destination, which is Mombasa. Our arrival or anchorage should match the time that has high tide so that we can avoid the risk of grounding. The next image shows the next high tide and low tide in Mombasa. There are tide tables in the internet, and there are also tide tables that are paper-based. Next on our checklist are the Tidal Stream Atlas. It also gives us information to assist in the prediction of tides, tidal streams, and curves. It includes detailed tidal stream direction and strength information for key locations in Northwest Europe, enabling for accurate calculation of tidal stream rates for a particular port when planning a voyage. Each volume of the Tidal Stream Atlases includes pictorial representations of tidal stream directions for each hour before and after the reference port, information on the direction and rate of tidal streams, mean nip and spring tidal rates in tenths of a knot. Number 10 in our checklist are the notices to mariners. Admiralty notices to mariners help us to ensure that Admiralty publications are maintained and up to date with the latest safety critical information. These are published in weekly editions by both British and hydrographic authorities, enabling ships to keep their charts and other publications up to date. Now, how do we correct the chart using Admiralty notices to mariners? First, we should have the following items for correcting the chart. First is the Admiralty notices to mariners, chart correction pens, highlighter, paper cutter, cutting board for cutting blocks, hexa blade for making submarine cable, parallel ruler, and tracing paper. There are different types of chart corrections. Few of those are listed on weekly notices to mariners. These are the following: permanent corrections listed on the serial number, temporary and preliminary corrections, navigational warnings which are listed on Navareyas. Also, a new edition of chart is issued when portion of the chart is revised. Before starting the correction, we should do the following: highlight the chart with a highlighter pen in the correction log. Note down the log correction numbers from all Admiralty notices to mariners that needs to be corrected, and it should be in ascending order. Voyage chart should be corrected first, followed by all chart on board. Next, we are going to pull out the affected chart and confirm the notice number. That are some of the few steps in correcting the chart by using weekly notices to mariners. Next are the Admiralty distance tables. The Admiralty distance tables are a 3-part series of tables, subdivided by region, giving the shortest distance between ports. There are supporting diagrams and text as well as link tables for places not in the same or adjacent table. The following images are the 3 volumes of the Admiralty distance tables. Next is the ship's routing. Its objective is to improve the safety of navigation in converging areas and in areas where the density of traffic is great or where freedom of movement of shipping is inhibited by restricted sea room, the existence of obstruction to navigation, limited depths or unfavorable meteorological conditions. This publication also contains these sections: Part A, General Provisions on Ships Routing; Part B, Traffic Separation Scheme, in-shore traffic separation zones; Part C, Deep Water Routes; Part D, Areas to be avoided; Part E, Other routing measures; Part F, Associated rules and recommendations in navigation; Part G, Mandatory ship reporting system, mandatory routing system, and mandatory no anchoring areas; Part H, Adoption, designated and substitution of archipelagic sea lanes. Under each part, we need to find if there is any information for our route. Under Part B, we could get the information related to Malacca Strait Traffic Separation Scheme. In Part C, we could also get information about the deep water routes in Malacca Strait. In Parts F and G, we can also see information on the rules to follow in Malacca Strait and the mandatory reporting. The idea is to collect all the information available and use it for planning the passage. We should also make it a habit to write notes of the data available ready for reference. Next to our checklist are the navigational warnings. It is one of the most important things in our chart correction. Navigational warnings are mainly of the following types: 1. Casualty to large navigational buoys, primary lights or lightships, changes in depth of water, dangerous wrecks or obstruction to navigation, floating dangers like containers, drifting buoys, and icebergs, newly established aids to navigation, gunnery or fire exercise areas and underwater activities in certain areas, vessel aground in approaching port areas, any changes or development of new buoyage system, and gale warnings. There were times when weekly notices to mariners used to arrive very late on board and chart corrections used to get delayed also. What ensured the safety of the vessel is the navigational warnings. Plotting the navigational warnings on charts ensures that the vessel is moving on a safe passage. Ignorance of navigational warnings, especially in passage plan, can be the reason for deficiency or non-conformity by port state inspectors as well. Number 14 on our checklist is the Mariner's Handbook. The Mariner's Handbook or NP100 contains clear guidance to help mariners improve their understanding of maritime navigation, sea and ice conditions, meteorology, and regulations. That is why Mariner's Handbook is included in our checklist. The Mariner's Handbook includes guidance to assist mariners in navigational training and active bridge procedures. Information includes charts and their use, the communication of navigational information, the maritime environment, restrictions to navigation, and maritime pollution and conservation. Simple tabular layouts to help users quickly locate essential information with images to aid the understanding of complex subjects. Next is the load line chart. The purpose of the load line is to ensure that a ship has sufficient freeboard or the height from the waterline to the main deck, and thus sufficient reserve buoyancy. The freeboard of a commercial vessels is measured between the lowest point of the uppermost continuous deck at side and the waterline, and this must not be less than the freeboard marked on the load line certificate issued to that ship. The seasonal zones, areas, and periods that determine the appropriate load line in a particular sea area at a given time of the year are by way of the chart. The tropical, summer, and winter favored zones are based upon the following weather criteria. For the summer zones, regions where not more than 10% of the wind speeds exceed force 8 in Beaufort or 34 knots. Tropical zones, regions where not more than 1% of the wind speeds exceed force 8 Beaufort or 34 knots, and not more than a tropical storm in a 10-year period occurs in an area of 50 latitude or longitude square in any separate calendar month. Winter zones are all other regions. Next is the draft of ship. So, what are the difference between the draft of the ship and the load lines? The load lines, they are marked only amidships on the both sides. Upper edge of the load line indicates correct reading. We do not measure anything on the load line markings. We just have readings of yes or no. Load lines deal with freeboard only and not draft. Draft marks, on the other hand, they are marked on both sides, forward, midship, and aft readings are taken on both sides and averaged. When the markings are in meters, the main meter marks are marked as numbers followed by letter M, such as 8M, 9M, 10M. In between the metric marks are numerical markings such as 2, 4, 6 to indicate 20 cm, 40 cm, 60 cm, and 80 cm. The height of each mark is 10 cm and the distance between the mark in 10 cm. If the water is lower in line with the lower edge of the mark 10m, the draft is 10.0 meters. If the water line is with the top edge of the 10m, then the draft is 10.10 meters and so on. Number 17 on our checklist are the owners and other sources. For gathering other sources, we can order publication for our reference and ask the captain. It can be a new publication for Mariner's Handbook, a new paper chart, maintenance record, E&C maintenance record, ocean passages of the world, publication on how to keep your Admiralty charts up to date, distance tables, maritime voyage system or symbols and abbreviations, and many more. So, the publications that are mentioned earlier can be a good source of information, or we can say a reference for our passage plan. Example of other sources are the sources of navigational warning. Navigational warnings can be received through NavText and Inmarsat-C, which is configured as EGC receiver. Last is the personal experience. To be more precise in making a voyage plan, you should also gain experience from the start. At first, you will start at the lowest rank and take notes of what you observe on board the ship. You will also be given a chance to watch officers make their voyage plan, and that is the time that you will gain experience and learn what to do during voyage planning. As you can see on the previous discussion, there are many things that are needed in the appraisal. From time to time that you are doing this, you are gaining experience and the passage planning will be easier for you. Now that we know where we can get the information for our appraisal, we can now proceed to the next steps in passage planning. Thank you for watching, and this is Midshipman Andrew D. Lamoco. I hope you learned something.